So, does it live up to the hype? Yes. That's it. Video over. Pack it up. We can go home. Greetings gamers, my name is Santo, and during 2024 I've been trying to play as many new games as possible. And today I want to talk to you about one of the standout systems that I have played this year, the Shadowdark RPG. This video is sponsored by Legend Keeper, more on them later. So this is a video that has been on my to record list for pretty much the entire year, and one of the things that folks have asked for when I did my audience survey over the last couple of months is more non-5e content, and very broadly, very few people specified what kinds of games they want to see. So I'm going to work through all of the games that I've picked up and played in this last year, and I figured probably best to start with the first one that I picked up this year, and that is Shadowdark. A big reason why it took me so long to get around to making this video is because for a big period of time, I really wanted to run this game with my regular gaming group, and I was kind of just sitting, waiting for them to get as enthused at the idea of playing Shadowdark as I was, and it just kind of never happened. So eventually I just went to my wider internet friends and a bunch of other D&D tubers and said,
hey, I really want to play Shadowdark. Will someone please run it for me so I can get the experience?
My buddy Ricky over at Zipper on Disney ran myself, Stephanie from Stephanie Plays Games, and Mark from the Arcane Mark channel through a one-shot, and it was a huge amount of fun. And I'll leave a link to the VOD for that because we live streamed it, so you can go and check out that video down in the description below. And since then, I've played Shadowdark a little bit more, and I just keep falling in love with it. Now, I'm not going to go super in-depth into the mechanics of the system in this video. I want to talk more about the vibes and what I have come to love about the system and why it excites me both as a player and more specifically as a game master. And to do that, I'm going to break it up into 3 broad points. And the first of those points is that in Shadowdark, you have less power, but you are more heroic. So what do I mean by that?
What do you mean?
So Shadowdark is a sort of OSR game. The player characters in Shadowdark are significantly less powerful than they are in 5th edition in terms of their innate magical abilities, in terms of how survivable they are, in terms of the options and kind of mechanics that they get. And because of this, monsters just feel inherently more frightening. Anyone that's played old school D&D will know this, but when you only have 4 hit points for a lot of your lifespan as a player, every monster is terrifying because every monster could be the one that kills you. As a result of this, spells in Shadowdark slap. This is very much not going to be everyone's cup of tea, but there are so many spells in Shadowdark that if you are below a certain level, they will just flat out kill you. So as an example, the power word kill spell. If you are of a level 9 or lower and you hear the word for this spell, you just die. Like, that's it. You just die. Like, if you are not high enough level, you are dead. Same with the cloud kill spell. If you end your turn in the cloud from the cloud kill spell and you are of level 9 or less, you just die.
At first he died. Now he dead.
Similarly with disintegrate, if you're level 5 or lower and you get hit with a disintegrate, you just crumble and die instantly. If you're level 6 or above, you take a bunch of damage instead. And this means that magic is rarer in Shadowdark. There are fewer things that use magic. The magic is a lot less common in a session because there's always a chance that you might lose access to your spells when you attempt to cast them. But the spells are so impactful. And then because the life of a Delver is so much more inherently dangerous in Shadowdark, it creates a space for the player characters to feel much more heroic.
I'm a real hero.
Not heroic in the sense of mythic heroes in the likes of D&D, who are incredibly powerful creatures who are performing great legendary deeds, but heroic in the sense of regular people standing up in the face of overwhelming odds.
I'm no hero. I'm a school teacher.
Shadowdark creates a space for a much more grounded fantasy campaign than something like 5th edition, which is much more magically saturated and lends itself much more to a sort of high level of fantasy, a much more mythic playstyle, whereas Shadowdark is a much more street level, grounded, not necessarily realistic, but a setting and a system that promotes a style of play where you will feel much more like a regular person or a slightly above average regular person going out and standing against the forces of darkness versus a predestined hero who is going out and saving the world. If you're enjoying this video, go ahead and leave a like below because it really does help me out. And if you want more videos of me talking about indie systems, hit the subscribe button to get more videos just like this. The next thing that I want to talk about in Shadowdark that I really love is darkness. Now that is both literal darkness, as in the absence of light, but also tonal darkness. So one of my common complaints on something like 5th edition is the prevalence of dark vision means that darkness as a mechanic is just really difficult to use, which is a real shame because darkness is really interesting to play around with and can really elevate the tension within a game. I understand the initial thought behind, oh, let's give them dark vision, let's not have to deal with that element. But when you lean into that element, when you lean into the managing of light and the concept that you just cannot see in the dark, like Shadowdark does, you get incredible tone. So as you may have heard, because it is one of the most talked about elements of the system, 1 hour of torch time in Shadowdark is 1 hour of real world time, and no characters pretty much in Shadowdark are able to see in the dark. So you always have to have a torch or some source of light going on. This means that as a player character, you always have to be considering the fact that you either need to be holding a torch or dropping a torch on the ground so that it can illuminate your area. It means you have to be mindful of the fact that other creatures can interact with your torch light and potentially plunge you into darkness, because some of the monsters can see in the dark, and that makes them, again, inherently more terrifying. And there's nothing quite like the feeling of being in the middle of a combat with a gribbly monster and having the light go out, being plunged into darkness, and suddenly finding yourselves in this tight corridor where all you can hear is the sound of this horrific hellbeast tearing your friends apart, and you have no idea which way is out. You have no idea which way you need to run, and you're just overwhelmed by the fear that that creature can see you and it's coming for you next. I love playing with darkness and vision in my games, and I'd love to know what you think about darkness down in the comments below, especially if you run like a 5th edition game. I'd love to know if you have ever been running the game and felt like the kind of prevalence of dark vision has robbed you of any dramatic tension. Let me know down in the comments below. But this darkness theme extends beyond just pure mechanics. It also kind of seeps into the entire tone of the game. I actually think that Shadowdark would be perfect for running a Dark Ages game set in the same world as a game where you would run 5th edition, for example. So in my homebrew setting of Ishtar, my current campaign uses the 5th edition system, but I would love to run a Shadowdark campaign set a few thousand years in the past, set in the Dark Ages, where magic was stranger, more esoteric, where people weren't as inherently magical because the magic has had, you know, several thousand years less time to seep into everybody, and explore some of the locations of the world and some of the themes of my homebrew setting within the context of that more dark tone within the mechanics. I think that it would be so much fun. But even though the lethality is higher than it is in a game like 5th edition, and it is overall a darker mechanical tone because of the way that a lot of the mechanics interact, it's not oppressively dark, which is something that I really appreciate. So I recently started reading through the Morkborg book, and while that game gives so many vibes, it executes the vibes immaculately. It really seems like that game would be miserable to spend a lot of time in because of how grimdark it is. Like, I am a fan of grimdark, but there is only so much that you can take before you just feel oppressed by the system.
Come and see the violence inherent in the system! Help! Help! I'm being repressed!
And I think Shadowdark, on the other hand, takes the concept of living in a dark world and instead makes you the flicker of hope in the darkness. And that is where I prefer tonally to be in a kind of grimdark setting. Is the world is dark, we are the hope. We see the darkness kind of before us, we experience some of it, but it's not like constantly being beaten by how grim the setting is. And then before we talk about the last thing that I really love about Shadowdark, which is its GM tool support, I want to talk about today's sponsor. I do a lot of world building here on the channel, which is why I'm so pleased that today's video is sponsored by Legend Keeper. For years now, Legend Keeper has been my go-to world building tool. It's what I've used to build out my homebrew world, and I've been using it to run my weekly campaign for the last 4 years, keeping all of my session notes, my player notes, and my world notes within Legend Keeper. The thing that I love most about Legend Keeper is that it just gets out of my way and lets me world build. There are no predetermined templates. It doesn't give me 1,000 prompts every time I want to do something. I can just create a new page and dive right into the act of creation. When I do want some structure though, there's a template system that allows me to set any page I've made as a template so I can use it over and over again. The main draw of Legend Keeper for me though is the atlas. Here you can upload a map and cover it in pins, which are linked to articles containing details about your world. You can change the color, the shape, the size of the pins to make finding information easier, especially when you have over 600 of them on a single map like I do. And not just that, but you can nest maps infinitely. You can have a map of your entire cosmos with a pin to your world, go down to the world level map, and then to your campaign region, and then zoom into the area the players are exploring, and then open up the map to their starting town, and then even open up a map of the local tavern. Legend Keeper also has boards, which are like interactive whiteboards where you can plot ideas or story beats, or even make a digital GM screen with clickable elements containing all the information that you need. When it comes time to share your world, you can invite your players to edit the world as collaborators, or just send them a link for them to view the public elements of the world like a wiki with no account needed. If you want to check out everything Legend Keeper has to offer, you can use my link in the description below and get a 14-day free trial. And then when you're ready, you can use the code Keeper of the Dark to get 20% off your first payment, including annual plans. Thanks again to Legend Keeper for supporting the channel. Now, back to the video. So the final pillar of things that I love about Shadowdark as a system, and the thing that makes me really excited to interact with it more, is its GM tools. And not so much prescriptive GM tools. This isn't the book saying, here's how you run things in Shadowdark specific. But this book is packed with just really useful fantasy gaming related GM tools. For example, in the center of the book, there's a big old section which is encounters. There's a double page spread for so many different locations: castles, forests, markets, Arctic, deserts, and on and on and on. And I would love for those encounter tables to be taken out of the book, published as a separate zine, so that I could bring just that little document with me to literally any fantasy game I play, because it's so useful. For example, in the High District, so if you're in the noble area of a city, you might roll a 42 on this table, and that is going to give you Duchess Gorval swoons near the edge of a high balcony. Or you might roll a 69 to pick a completely random number, which would give you a drunk socialite casually admits to killing her husband. And there's so many of these tables packed throughout the book. From rumors to traps and hazards to something happens tables to NPC generators, and just there is so much inspiration as a GM inside this book, and it is one of my absolute favorite things about it. For how mechanically light it is compared to a lot of the systems I play, and for how small and compact the book is, it packs a lot into here. For example, the monster generating tables are just really useful even if you're not running Shadowdark. Like, it gives you options for their qualities, like insectoid or draconic, angelic or spectral. And then it gives you a strength, like having high intelligence or the ability to impersonate another creature. And it gives you a weakness, such as silver or its true name, vanity or mirrors. And then you have a number of mutations, like fins and gills or extra damage or genius intellect, and just rolling on this table can give you a really interesting monster that you can then develop out into whatever fantasy system you're running. So as I said, I have really enjoyed playing Shadowdark so far. It's something that I am really interested in playing more of, and I, like I said, would really like to run like a historic campaign within the Ishtar setting set in the Age of Darkness using the Shadowdark rules, but inside the setting of Ishtar, and seeing what kind of shenanigans and hijinks the players can get up to. I really hope that you enjoyed this video. If you want to keep watching, check out this video where I talk about my experiences with Monster of the Week earlier this year. But until next time, happy gaming.